person is engaged or married, they usually wear a ring. And the ring is a sign to the world that they are in a commitment with someone else. And why am I saying all of this? Today we're going to talk about the time when God asked Abram to do something to mark their commitment with one another. It seems that from time to time, God came to remind Abram about the promise and tell him, Abram, I will give you all this land and your descendants will be uncountable. There will be so many. All the families in the world will be blessed through you. So when Abram was 99 years old, God comes along and tells him everything we just mentioned. He reminds him of all the promise. And at the beginning of the video, I was talking about rings. Well, God asked Abram to do something to mark the commitment between him and Abram, and that is circumcision. And God asked Abram that every male of his household had to be circumcised. Whether they were a family member, a servant, or a foreigner, everyone had to do this. If you were a male in Abram's household and did not have that circumcision, you were automatically excluded from God's promise and blessing. And this distinguished Abram and his family and set them apart from everyone else. So today, circumcision is not a literal thing. Now, what God asks is for us to circumcise our hearts, to remove from our human nature that sin that destroys us as a sign of our devotion to Him. The name Abram means exalted father, but God wanted to elevate Abram's purpose and remind him that the purpose for him was way greater than just an exalted father. No, He renames him Abraham, which means father of many, or father of many nations. Because this is the purpose that God had planned for Abraham. And God also changes Sarai's name to Sarah and calls her the mother of many nations and clarifies that she would be the mother of the promised child. And Abram laughs at the idea that him, a 100-year-old man, would have a kid with a 90-year-old woman. It's like if I tell you that your grandparents that are barely able to walk, are going to have a kid. Naturally, Abram laughed because this sounded so impossible. And then Abram says, well, what about Ishmael? He's also my son. Isn't he enough? Or what's going to happen to him? And God reassures Abram, don't worry. He will be blessed, but he is not the child I promised you. The child that God was promising would come from Sarah. Our human mind struggles and has difficulties grasping the idea of all the impossibilities God plans to do with us. And it is really difficult to understand all of it, but we have to know that God is in control. He knows what He's doing, and His mind is superior to ours. In our tiny minds, the idea of God's impossibilities doesn't fit. But all we have to know is that God is a God of impossibilities.